Is climate change biblical? Now, this is an interesting question. For those of you unfamiliar with the church or the Bible, this needs a little background. From my experience, most Christians tend to be politically conservative, and as a consequence tend to downplay or ignore what people have to say about climate change. While this isn't the case for every Christian, it does beg the question, what does the Bible say about climate change? And just so we're clear, I'm not here to argue for or against climate change or global warming. If anything, I'm trying to find out whether climate change is biblically possible. Could it happen? That said, let's get into it. First, we need to understand what climate change is. Climate change is significant and long-lasting change in the Earth's climate and weather patterns. That is from Merriam-Webster. However, I am referring to the more specific concept of global warming that started recently as of the last 150 to 300 years. Now that definition is an increase in the Earth's atmospheric and oceanic temperatures widely predicted to occur due to an increase in the greenhouse effect resulting especially from pollution. For this video, both climate change and global warming are referring to the modern problem of Earth's increasing global temperature. As far as I have learned and am aware, the current accepted idea on global warming is that due to the recent increase in human industrialization, a large amount of CO2 and other chemicals have entered the atmosphere in higher quantities and more frequency than ever before. This pollution, as it's typically called, comes from the burning of fuels or the creation of modern products such as polymers. Burning wood, coal, charcoal, and fossil fuels all produce CO2 as a byproduct. CO2 is known as a greenhouse gas because it tends to absorb thermal energy and trap it rather than letting it go. Now there are built-in processes that the Earth has to collect and reuse CO2, but it's currently accepted that these processes are not robust enough to handle the current amount of pollution. Some of these processes use forests, grasses, and primarily algae to absorb CO2 and produce oxygen. Now as more CO2 collects in the atmosphere, less thermal energy from the sun is able to escape back into space. Thus, global temperatures rise. Now this rise in temperature will have several effects. It'll create more deserts, raise the water temperature, and increase the frequency and severity of weather disasters such as floods, hurricanes, and sandstorms. The rising water temperature will cause the polar caps to melt, increasing the amount of liquid water on Earth while diluting the concentration of salt in that water. This will damage saltwater ecosystems and reduce the land mass on the Earth. As well, it will cause coral bleaching and algae blooms. The current theory goes that if humankind continues producing pollution at the current rate, the Earth will lose its ability to sustain life and eventually die off. Now, this current idea of climate change is not the same as the well-understood 500-year cycle that Earth tends to go through. This 500-year cycle, known as the Milankovitch cycle, refers to the natural phenomenon of Earth warming up and cooling down every 500 years. This is why Britain was able to grow vineyards and grapes during the height of the Roman Empire. It's the same reason for there being found large farms in Iceland from over 1,000 years ago. Now that this is understood, we can get into the question of, is climate change biblical? First, is there climate change in the Bible? Yes. There are several accounts of climate change in the Bible, usually caused by God himself. Genesis 6-8 contains the account of the worldwide flood, where the earth went from being a mix of land and water to being only water for over a year. Joseph in the land of Egypt helped stabilize the economy of most of the Middle East during a 7-year famine caused by poor weather. During the time of the Exodus, when Moses was rescuing Israel from bondage to Egypt, there were 10 plagues sent by God, and several of these plagues were weather-based, such as hail and darkness. Then, in 1 Kings 17, Elijah is told by God of a coming drought that lasts for 6 years. And then, in the New Testament, Revelation contains several visions of the earth being subjected to various weather-based disasters. There's poisoned water, dried up rivers, scorching sun, storms, and the greatest earthquake of all time. So there definitely are recorded times of climate change in the Bible, with some being caused by God and some not. Now, the Bible itself doesn't explicitly say much about climate change or global warming that we know of today. However, there are a few things we can glean from scripture on the topic. The greatest of these comes from Genesis in the first 8 chapters. Genesis is the first book of the Bible chronicling the creation of the universe, the first man and woman, and the fall of man into sin. First, there is the creation of man. When Adam was first created, God gave him a command, a purpose for his existence. This was to have offspring and rule over the earth and all the life on it. Now this purpose was passed on to every single human being that came after, which includes all of us, whether you're a Christian or not. Now it's important to understand what the Bible means by rule over the earth. It doesn't mean abuse or destroy the earth. When God gave this command, it was understood that a good, godly ruler would protect, nurture, and grow the world he ruled over. It does include using the resources in the earth, but not damaging the world while doing it. This means it's fine to have a fishing industry, a mining industry, an electricity industry, and a logging industry. It's just not okay to use those resources wastefully or without properly replacing them. And that's important because some misguided Christians have used this verse to justify destructive practices like strip mining and irresponsible waste procedures. Not cool. Now, there's more to this in Genesis 8. After the flood, Noah stood before God, and God gave humanity a few more rules and made a promise to them. Noah then sacrificed an animal to God, and God promised that the seasons would continue as they had since the beginning of creation, and that the daytime cycle would never be permanently disrupted. And this is an unconditional promise, which means that it will always hold true regardless of what humanity does. That is, humanity doesn't have the power to disrupt or stop the cycle of daytime or the seasons. Now, as you might imagine, this verse has been used to justify some destructive practices, since it seems to say that humanity can use the earth however they want with no consequences. But if you read it carefully, that isn't what it says. It says that the seasons won't stop and that we will always have day and night. Now think about this with me. Let's say, for example, you live in the northernmost part of Alaska or Russia. During the summer, night never falls. During the winter, the sun never rises. That appears on first light to break the promise. If you live along the equator, then you know that there are only 2 seasons, monsoon and the dry season. There are not 4 seasons, just 2. So what we need to understand is that God is not promising the seasons and the day and night cycle will never change. He is promising that they will never stop. The natural day and night cycle is different all over the world, just like the seasons. And this still falls in line with God's promise. What this means is twofold. First, humanity will never destroy the earth. Sure, they might be able to, especially with all of our nukes, but God will never allow that to happen. And that's good news. The second bit is that humanity is able to change the earth and mold it to what we desire. This change can be beneficial or harmful. Now, when you properly understand God's command to Adam, it means that God is giving mankind the power to have its way on the earth within reason. The implication of that command is that we are able to improve the earth and make it worse. We might not be able to destroy the planet, but it's definitely within our power to make a species extinct, to destroy a forest, create a desert, or poison a lake. We can damage the earth, just not destroy it. And this seems to indicate that we can indeed make our winters worse and our summers hotter than normal. And if you still don't believe that humanity can destroy the earth, then let's continue farther in scripture. The Apostle Peter spoke to some Christians concerning the end of the world, and he writes that the world is being prepared to be melted and burned to nothing. Now let's be clear that destroying something is irreversible. Once the earth is destroyed, something new is required to take its place. And God has declared that the earth will be destroyed, but that He will do it, not mankind. It's very clear that God has plans for this earth, and it doesn't include mankind destroying the planet or the universe. Rather, God is literally going to melt the universe to nothing and then remake it. Christians have speculated that this could easily be done if God just let all of the atoms in the universe simultaneously split, creating a universe-wide fission reaction. Now, I'm no scientist, so I'm not going to say any more on that topic. Anyway, this makes it clear that human beings will not destroy the earth. God's already claimed the right to that. So what have we discovered? Well, according to the Bible, it seems that a lot of people are ignorant of what it says about climate change. We have learned that humanity has the power to help or harm the earth but not destroy it, and that God will destroy the earth when He wants to. So, according to the Bible, those who say that humanity is going to destroy the earth through pollution are wrong. God will destroy the earth, not pollution or humans. Also, according to the Bible, humanity is capable of changing the earth and damaging God's creation. They are also held responsible for it, so failure to properly care for the earth is wrong of any Christian. And what this seems to point to is the middle ground of both sides in the discussion. Christians are to use the resources on earth for their own benefit, but are also required to care for the earth, to make sure it's not damaged. Christians ought not fall for the false claim that we will destroy the earth, but we must not become complacent or irresponsible of the world that was given to us. So what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. See ya.